Looking back over 200 years of glorious service, we are soon reminded as to why the Royal Horse Artillery is so widely regarded as a corps d'élite. The concept of horse artillery seems a simple one now, but 250 years ago, when it was first tried by Frederick the Great, it represented a major tactical breakthrough. By allowing commanders to move guns quickly during a battle, horse artillery permitted the concentration of firepower at the decisive point of the battlefield. Whilst this meant that artillery could become a battle-winning factor, it demanded the highest standards of the horse gunners themselves, in all aspects of soldiering and especially in horsemanship. The British Army of the 18th century was deeply conservative and largely unprofessional. The exceptions, however, were the Royal Artillery and the Royal Engineers. Their officers were the only ones in the army to receive a formal training at the Royal Military Academy at Woolwich, whilst the other ranks were some of the best trained and disciplined in the army. The gunners were under what constituted almost the private command of the Master General of the Ordnance, a post filled in the latter half of the century by the 3rd Duke of Richmond and Lennox. He it was who championed the creation of the Royal Horse Artillery. After a 5-year campaign, he secured a royal warrant on the 8th of January 1793. This authorized the formation of 2 troops which were raised on the 1st of February at Woolwich and named A and B Troop, Royal Horse Artillery. So strong was the Duke's interest in the new troops that he soon moved A Troop to his own home at Goodwood House to continue outfitting and training. To achieve the high standards demanded of horse gunners, each troop was established with all the resources required to maintain it on a permanent basis, both in peace and war, itself a step forward in the army of the day. Their establishment varied over the years, but averaged around 180 men, a similar number of horses, and 6 guns. Officers and men were selected for temporary attachment from the Royal Artillery as a whole, thereby creating an elite within an elite. In India, the Honourable East India Company was quick to exploit the new concept, and as early as 1800 had formed European horse artillery troops. These troops of the Madras, Bengal and Bombay presidencies were to prove themselves in battle as far afield as Java, Burma and Afghanistan. When India came under the rule of the Crown in 1858, so too did the horse artillery troops of the East India Company. And in 1861, these were incorporated into the Royal Horse Artillery in a happy and profitable union. After preliminary skirmishes in Ireland, Holland and South America, the Royal Horse Artillery played a distinguished role in the Iberian Peninsula. First of all, in the Corunna campaign of 1808 to 1809, under Sir John Moore, where B Troop fought a brilliant cavalry action with the 15th Hussars at Sargon. Later, 5 troops fought in the Peninsular Campaign under Arthur Wellesley, soon to become the Duke of Wellington. A, D and I troops arrived in 1810, E in 1811, and F in 1812. I Troop, for example, took part in 4 sieges, 47 actions, and the major battles of Busaco, Fuentes de Noro, Salamanca, Vitoria, and Nivelle. Perhaps the finest exploit was Ramsay's dash to safety at the Battle of Fuentes de Noro, when he, 2 guns, and over 40 gunners of I Troop were cut off from the main British force by a mass of French chasseurs. As the French charged the British lines, they were overtaken by Ramsay and his gun teams, who skillfully cut their way from the rear through the center of the French formation. Ramsay burst through the front of the French cavalry to reach the British lines and safety. This dramatic incident captures the very essence of horse gunnery: elan, guts, and a strong measure of sheer professional ability. By the time of Waterloo, the Royal Horse Artillery had increased from the original 2 troops of 1793 to a total of 14. Of these, 8 were present at the Battle of Waterloo in June 1815. As every schoolboy knows, Waterloo was a damned close-run thing. And for the British artillery, the day was made more dangerous by an overextended deployment and Wellington's orders that gunners should abandon their guns if hard pressed to seek refuge in the infantry squares. Such an idea is anathema to all artillerymen, and none more so than Captain Cavalier Mercer, commanding G Troop, Royal Horse Artillery. When a great mass of French cavalry was seen forming up for an attack, Mercer galloped his troop into action forward of the Brunswickers, into a position whence his guns destroyed attack after attack. When the French finally withdrew, the gunners were completely hidden from view by the carnage of horses and men surrounding their position. During the Crimean War, the Royal Horse Artillery were represented by 2 batteries, C and I, the latter now being O Battery. C Battery fought valiantly at Alma, but played a more notable part in the Battle of Balaclava on the 25th of October, 1855. The battery, commanded by John Brandling, forced 2,000 Russian cavalrymen to withdraw in disarray after the charge of the Heavy Brigade. Later in the day, Brandling's men covered the withdrawal of survivors from the charge of the Light Brigade. 4 years later, the first Royal Horse Artillery batteries arrived in India to join their East India Company counterparts in the final operations of the Great Indian Mutiny. Toombs Troop, Bengal Horse Artillery, won 2 Victoria Crosses on the ridge outside Delhi in July 1857. D Battery distinguished itself when it acted as cavalry to charge a large body of mutineers at Secundra Gunj. During the Second Afghan War, EB Battery extracted 4 of its 6 guns when overrun during the Battle of Maiwand. Many acts of heroism throughout the battery were recognized by the award of 2 Victoria Crosses to Sergeant Mullane and Gunner Collis, and several distinguished conduct medals. During the Boer War of 1899 to 1902, Q Battery Royal Horse Artillery fought an outstanding action at Sanna's Post in March 1900. Victoria Crosses were won by Major Phipps Hornby, Sergeant Parker, Driver Glassock, and Gunner Lodge, pictured here in Q Battery in 1909. 3 other members of the battery received the distinction, making Sanna's Post the most highly decorated action in the history of the Royal Regiment. When not in action, horse artillery batteries served around the world, many in India and others as far afield as Persia, Burma, and China. For others, there were the timeless pleasures of garrison service in England, and with it the constant round of training and manoeuvres. In some of the earliest film recorded in Britain, a gun troop of Y Battery, Royal Horse Artillery, is seen carrying Queen Victoria's coffin, a privilege shared with the Royal Navy to this day.